White flour, the soft, fluffy base of bread, pastries, even your pasta. It seems innocent, but behind that whiteness lies a history of loss. Loss of nutrition, loss of traditional foodways, loss of health. Today, we trace the dark history of white flour, how modern milling stripped away vital nutrients, how industrial demands elevated shelf life over wellness, and how societies paid the price. You'll hear about 19th century innovations that forever changed how wheat was processed, science that revealed what was being thrown away, public health disasters sparked by diets of white flour, and what remains today, enriched flours, missing nutrients, chronic diseases. If you think white bread is harmless, think again. Once you know the truth, you'll look at every loaf, every roll, in a whole new light. Invention and rise of refined flour. In the mid to late 19th century, milling technology leaped forward. Traditional stone mills were being replaced by roller mills, which could separate parts of the wheat, the bran and germ, more efficiently. What remained was the endosperm, the starchy, light-colored core. That starchy core became known as white flour. Why bother stripping wheat down this way? Because bran and germ contain oils that spoil quickly. Removing them allowed flour to stay fresh for much longer. White flour stayed longer on shelves. Lighter, fluffier bread could be made. It looked clean and modern. Wealthy households preferred it, associating whiteness with refinement. Ordinary people saw white bread as aspirational. By the early 20th century, white flour became the standard in many Western countries. Industrial roller mills produced non-whole grain flour at scale. In the United States, over 90% of commercial flour production is white enriched flour, non-whole grain. Yet from its early rise came warnings. Diets relying heavily on white flour were observed to cause nutrient deficiencies. Diseases like pellagra, niacin deficiency, beriberi, thiamine deficiency, anemia, iron deficiency began to plague populations. Governments and public health agencies responded by requiring enrichment and fortification. In the U.S., white bread-based foods have been fortified with thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, iron since around 1941. Still, enrichment replaced only a few of the many nutrients lost. The process of refining removed bran and germ, the parts richest in fiber, vitamins, minerals. This set the stage for long-term impacts. What exactly is lost? Science of nutrition stripped. When bran and germ are removed, what goes missing? According to USDA data, most white flours retain only about 72% of the original whole grain. That means around 28% of the kernel is gone, including many nutrients. A more detailed breakdown. Fiber is reduced by 79%. About 70% of minerals are lost. 66% of B vitamins are removed. A chart of 19 vitamins and minerals lost in flour refining shows staggering figures. Vitamin E, 86% lost. Magnesium, 84.7%. Manganese, 85.8%. Zinc, 77.7%. Iron, 75.6%. Thiamine, 77.1%. Niacin, 80.8%. Riboflavin, 80%. These are not small losses. These are core nutrients our bodies need every day. Fiber loss is especially critical. Dietary fiber in whole grains slows digestion and moderates blood sugar spikes. Without it, white flour acts almost like sugar in the way the body handles glucose. Also lost are trace minerals and antioxidants found in germ: selenium, copper, chromium. Even if white flour is enriched with some nutrients, thiamine, niacin, riboflavin, folic acid, iron, many millions of people consume refined flour as a major starch source and still suffer from low intake of fiber and micronutrients. The result? Diet looks fortified on paper, but is hollow in many ways. Public health and societal consequences. With large-scale refinement, societies began to see consequences. Deficiency diseases re-emerged or worsened. In the U.S., pellagra, niacin deficiency, was common in early 1900s among populations eating mostly white flour and corn without enriched nutrients. After fortification policies, adding back niacin, thiamine, riboflavin, iron, incidence dropped significantly. But the damage wasn't just rare deficiency diseases. Modern epidemiology links high intakes of refined grains, white flour products, to chronic diseases. A large study of 137,000 130 people across 21 countries over 16 years. Pure study found that more than 7 servings of refined grain per day was associated with a 27% greater risk of early death, 33% greater risk of heart disease, and 47% greater risk of stroke compared to lower consumption. Also, refined flour causes rapid spikes in blood sugar and insulin. Over time, this leads to insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, obesity. A randomized crossover trial among people with risk factors for type 2 diabetes showed that different whole grain breads versus refined had lower postprandial glucose and insulin responses. Additionally, animal studies confirm what epidemiology suggests. Diets where refined flour replaces whole grain lead to gain in blood glucose, worsened lipid profiles, increased body weight. In one rat model, major features of metabolic syndrome, hypertension, high triglycerides, low ATL, appeared within weeks. Low fiber from white flour also means poorer gut health, increased inflammation, reduced satiety. So people eat more, often more calories, often processed foods, compounding the problem. Enrichment, reforms, and remaining gaps. How have societies tried to fix what was lost? In the US since the 1930s and 1940s, white flour has been enriched, adding back nutrients lost in milling: iron, thiamine, B1, riboflavin, B2, niacin, B3, and in later decades, folic acid, B9. These interventions have had real effects. Pellagra and beriberi became rare. Neural 2 defects dropped after mandated folic acid fortification. Such laws saved lives. But enrichment addresses only some issues. Fiber is rarely restored. Trace minerals and many B vitamins lost in germ and bran are often not part of enrichment. Also, the synthetic forms sometimes differ in bioavailability compared to naturally occurring nutrients in whole grains. Another gap: glycemic impact. Even enriched white flour still causes sharper blood sugar spikes than whole grain or coarsely milled alternatives. Recent meta-analyses show reformulated breads with whole grain blends or increased fiber improve glycemic control among adults at risk of type 2 diabetes. Globally, some countries still lag in regulation. White flour products in many low and middle-income countries may not be enriched sufficiently. Enforcement is inconsistent. Dietary patterns remain heavily reliant on white bread, noodles, pastries. So, while reforms exist, many downstream health risks remain because what's missing, fiber, trace minerals, natural nutrient synergy, isn't fully restored. What you can do: personal choices and takeaways. So what can you do now that you know the true history? Strip nutrition, restored only partially, risks clear? 1. Choose whole grain flours and whole grain breads. When shopping, pick bread that says whole wheat, whole grain, or wholemeal. Look for higher fiber content, 5-7 grams per slice or more. 2. Check labels. Even enriched white flours will list wheat flour, refined, or bleached in ingredients. Avoid partially hydrogenated additives. Avoid bleached flours when possible. 3. Use minimally processed alternatives. Stone ground, sprouted, or coarse ground whole wheat flours preserve more nutrients. 4. Moderate refined flour intake. Reduce pastries, white bread, standard buns. Replace some with whole grain or mixed flour options. 5. Support good policy. Advocate for stronger enrichment laws, better labeling, promotion of whole grains in school, cafeteria menus. 6. Balance the diet. Include plenty of vegetables, fruits, legumes, nuts, seeds. These help compensate for what white flour lacks. Also, fibers, whole foods stabilize blood sugar and improve metabolic health. You don't need perfection. Small shifts add up. Every loaf of whole grain you choose tells the system you value nutrition over convenience. So that is the dark history of white flour. How it was refined for profit and convenience. How its bleaching and sifting stripped away the heart of its nutrition. How enrichment and fortification tried to patch the damage. And how many societies still suffer from the long-term effects. If this video changed how you see your bread, your pasta, your pastries, hit like, share, and subscribe. Tony, did you know about the nutrients lost in white flour? What do you? Until the next video, bake smart, eat whole, fight for real nutrition. because history shows how easily the good stuff gets stripped away.